Ten Hag out. What's going on, people? Welcome back to another segment of pros and cons from myself, Nick McCabe. Manchester United hosted the City rivals yesterday. The game that everyone has so much pride about. It means a lot to the players, to the fans, to the community alike. It's the big one. It's the one we kind of, in the past couple of years, were a little bit apprehensive and nervous about due to how past results have gone. And this time was no different. Going into it, we already had a pretty injury-ridden squad. We were missing important players like the Sandro Martinez, who's out long-term. Likewise with Luke Shaw. Wan-Bissaka's only just come back into training. Varane's hit or miss. Casemiro was a doubt for this game. And then when we saw the lineups come out, we had Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire at the back, a 35-year-old Johnny Evans. We had Reguilon, who was on the bench, and Lindelof was starting at left back. And it was just, you looked at the squad in comparison to City's. I mean, City started with Kyle Walker, Gvardiol, Ruben Diaz at the back, absolute tanks in all assets of defending. And then the front five of Haaland, Foden, Julian Alvarez, Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish as well. You're just like, they are just going to cause so many problems. And that's exactly what they did all game for the full 90 minutes. Apart from the first 5 minutes, I'd probably say, was the only time I felt, like, oh, we might actually get something here. There seems to be a plan. There seems to be a structure. But as soon as they started overloading that left-hand side and Bernardo Silva started knitting play together, it was basically curtains for United, especially when that penalty decision got given. Højlund bringing Rodri down, which, people are saying it's definitely a foul. I can see what they mean by that, but at the same time, these fouls happen all the time in the box. I mean, you could literally go to any Premier League game and it's probably happened in that game from a set piece and it doesn't get given. So the argument isn't whether it's a foul or not. It is a foul, but then it's the inconsistency of the referees and VAR. That's what people have an issue with, and that's been the issue for the whole season, especially with Manchester United as well. You can go back and look at any of the decisions. There is so many inconsistencies with that, and you can't blame fans for being absolutely outraged by it because there's the evidence. So as soon as that penalty was given and Haaland scored it, we know it was an uphill battle. We know it was going to be tough. And then everything that happened in between the start of the game and the 90th minute, that's exactly what we're going to discuss now. And there's a lot of negative to get into, so you have to bear with me in this one. The first thing we want to discuss is Bruno Fernandes as the captain. I know Roy Keane, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were discussing this last night, and I absolutely agree with them. And this is, I'm not just copying their points. We've said this on the channel when it got announced at the time. Between us all, we was like, we're not sure if Bruno Fernandes is the right profile to pick as a captain. He goes missing in the big games, he's erratic, he can be inconsistent, he's petulant, and he doesn't lead on the pitch. He seems to lead with his emotions, and when he's throwing tantrums, like yesterday Gary Neville called it, he said, what's going to happen now? Bruno Fernandes is going to start lashing out at people, he'll get himself booked, he'll start arguing with the referees, etc., blah, blah, blah. That isn't a leader. That is not a leader. I would look more towards Casemiro, but then he's fell off again. But he's more of the calmness and the presence and one of the world-class players in the team. The Sandro Martinez, equally, I know he's only just joined and there was criticism over Maguire getting the armband so soon. But before he got that injury against Sevilla, he was a 7 out of 10 every single game. And his spirit, the character that he shows, the resilience, that's what you want in a captain. And Bruno, there was question marks for him instantly. Roy Keane even said it last night, the greatest Premier League captain ever said it last night, that he is not fit for the bill. If you can't control your emotions on the pitch or show up when it matters the most, I'm sorry, but you don't pass the test. Look at all the other captains. Even if you go to the Premier League, look at what Son's doing for Spurs. Excuse me. I know he's in a new role for him, but look what he's doing now. He is leading that team. He's setting the example. He's scoring the goals. I think he's joint top goal scorer. Or it might just be behind Erling Haaland now. De Bruyne, when he's fit, in big games, turns up. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Arsenal last season. He was the guy who led him in that moment. Where's our guy? Where's Bruno Fernandes turning up in these games? He's had one good game. I say this every single week. People who watch this segment know I say it every week. One good game against Nottingham Forest as captain of Manchester United. Huge scrutiny for me. Doesn't show up. He's supposed to be an important player for us, and he's just a headless chicken with anger issues. Lack of goals. Listen to this, right? So Anthony has 1 in 24. Marcus Rashford has 3 in 23. Anthony Martial has 3 in 23. Sancho has 2 in 25. Garnacho has 3 in 22. And Erling Haaland, Jesus Christ, wow, brainwashed. Rasmus Haaland has 3 in 11. I mean, yesterday was a prime example of why we do not score goals. When we win the ball high up the pitch, which we do in a lot of games, we never convert the chances, ever. Never convert the chances. So you give yourself a hill to climb there instantly. When one man, Erling Haaland, has as many goals as your whole team does, that is a worrying sign. I know Haaland's a goal machine. He gets created millions of chances for him, and he takes them, in fairness to him. When we get chances and get a high turnover, we do nothing with it. It's happened all season. It's been a theme. At least, when Liverpool was going through a transitional period and they had issues defensively with Mignolet in there and other defenders who were still at the club, at least he was outscoring teams. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they wouldn't lose because they would win 4-3, it would look ugly at times. It wouldn't look the best. But they would outscore teams. We are relying on our attackers now. We've got an injury-hit squad apart from the attack. Anthony's available, 85 million quid. Rashford's available, been available all season. Garnacho's there. Haaland's just come in. They're not doing enough. They're not. Even Haaland had a few. I'm not blaming Haaland because I like him, but he had a couple of chances yesterday where you think, oh, you could have gone down there or you could have finished it. McTominay got into a position yesterday. I'm just like, fuck's sake. Final third. Haaland's available on the right hand side. He tries bubbling it about and getting a shot off and fails. If he would have just slid Haaland in, he probably would have scored. And that is the issue with our attack. We've scored 20 goals in 14 games. That's on average about a goal, just over a goal a game, I think it is. And we've conceded 24 goals in the same time, which is 2 goals a game. Not good enough at either end. What is the style of play? Now, this one, and I've gone in detail on because there's a lot of people who are complaining that there's no style and we want control, and there's a few issues with that for me personally. The first is the core of this team cannot play that possession-based style that Erik ten Hag had at Ajax. It's as simple as that. They do not have the skill set to do it, so get that out of your head immediately. Ten Hag even said that recently in an interview. We saw when Ten Hag tried these tactics in the first 2 games against Brighton and Brentford, what happened? We got battered because we didn't have the individual personnel to do it. Simple as that. He then changed it, went a bit more direct, played long balls, and then started. He kind of looked at the landscape and looked at the players he had. He looked at Casemiro, what he brought to the table, looked at what Bruno Fernandes was good at, looked at what Marcus Rashford was good at, and slightly lent into that, saying transitional football, counter-attacks. And, we had a successful season off the back of it, won a trophy, came third. After the season that we just had, I think a lot of people would have deemed that as successful. In the game against Liverpool last season, we decided to drop deep, killed them on the counter-attack, and it wasn't a case of, we're just getting by to try and get a result. It was a case of, this is how we'll win. We play to these strengths, we will win games, and it's a results business. It was even more effective than any of Solskjaer's seasons in charge, and that's a proven fact. So obviously it was working. The thing is about Ole and what the difference is between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's football and Erik ten Hag's football is, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side was about prevention. They were compact in the middle to kind of prevent you from getting through them, and they guarded the box. That's how we were. Very low block, everyone's tight, and there was a big gap between some of the midfielders and the attack. That was the issue with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ten Hag's version of United is more active defensively. They sit deeper. They allow you to get closer to the goal. They make more tackles, block more shots. They push their forwards higher, but the defenders don't follow suit. The thing is, if teams back off you and you slowly move up the pitch and take the space they're giving you, all you're doing is restricting that space for your attackers to flourish and operate. If you kind of disrupt that by doing the slow build-up, like you can hit direct balls. Watch the Leeds game, that's a prime example of it. Sabitzer's on it, slow movement, slow bang, and then you hit him. You play it into it. Shaw gets on the left-hand side, puts a cross in for Rashford, heads it in the net. We had, I think it was 59 direct attacks last season, which was the most in the league. So like I said, the slow, fast build-up helps draws defenders out, gets your attackers in 1v1 situations rather than facing a set defence. So that's the difference. The issue is with that, when you're trying to implement that style, when you don't have players like Casemiro, Varane and Martinez due to injury or suspension or whatever it is, you will struggle to implement this style. With such an injury-hit squad at the moment, it's no surprise to me that we're struggling with this. Because the reason why you brought Andre Onana in was to play out from the back. And you can't play out from the back when you have players like Maguire and Johnny Evans in front of you. You just can't. So then you have to revert, you have to tweak it, and you have to go long. Because Lissandro and Shaw aren't available, who are massive for ball progression. So I understand why we're struggling from the back. I can't stress how much not having your first team defence for the majority of games, or even to play together for a string of games, has such an effect in terms of chemistry, patterns, and defensive stability. You can't do it. You just cannot do it unless the players have been there a long time and they're fluid like Man City have. So yes, the style doesn't seem sustainable at the moment and the absences have made it look like a team of individuals. But people might call me stupidly naive, but I still think it'll work. I've seen bits in games where I'm like, if we can do that on a consistent basis and if we actually take our chances, we will kill teams off. And people want control. I understand it. You want control in the midfield. I get it. I completely understand it. But with the individual players we have right now, you cannot play that style of football. There are too many players who should not be here. When I looked at that lineup yesterday, I said at the start of the video, I think Harry Maguire's Europa League level. Johnny Evans is 35 years old and got relegated with Leicester and should not be starting in a Manchester derby. There's still question marks about Dalot and his development. Lindelof is a bench quality centre-back and he's starting at left-back against City. Amrabat's a steady player, but I'm still not convinced of him yet. He's not shown enough. I think his first game was promising, but apart from that, he's been pretty average, even though we did, drop off when he went off the pitch. Eriksen can be a bit part player in certain games when you're playing a team, let's say, when you've got control of the game and it's a team near the bottom of the league. I think you can play Eriksen there, but he hasn't got the legs for a prominent midfield role. Bruno Fernandes, when he's on it, can be a part of a successful team, but he's very hot and cold. Scott McTominay should play for Everton. I legit think that's his level. I think he would be a good player for them. Rashford is a purple patch player. You never know what you're going to get. And Højlund looks like a gem, but he just needs time to adapt. So arguably, there are 6 or 7 different players there who should not get into this team and would not get into top teams around Europe. Just think of them individual players that I mentioned. Think of all the top clubs, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Man City, Arsenal, any of them. Would them players get in there? No, they wouldn't. They'd probably struggle to get on the bench. So we are starting players now who we tried to sell in the summer. We're relying on Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay and these guys who should have gone. We tried to get rid of to West Ham and we couldn't. And now they're the starters. So does that not tell you everything you need to know? Like, it's bizarre to me. And I think, again, it all falls back to the board, to recruitment, to the Glazers, because of stupid contracts and the fact that you're not willing to let certain players go and you're not willing to spend money to bring certain players in because you don't want to put your own hand in your pocket. Antony is an £85 million flop who Erik ten Hag was absolutely adamant on signing. Now, after the first season, you give him the benefit of the doubt because he's adapted to the league, it's a new team. He had moments of brilliance in the Barcelona game, scored on his debut against Arsenal, and had other moments where you're like, okay, I can see, there's something to work with this player here. He works extremely hard off the ball, he keeps the shape, he gives Erik ten Hag what he wants in terms of instructions on the pitch. I understand it. But by the time this season comes around, it's the second season now, he's had a full year to settle in. Now we want to see more. We've got higher expectations going into this, and he still hasn't yet got a goal or an assist as a winger. And I think he's played 7 games in the Premier League. For £85 million, you expect so much more. If you look at any of the wingers, right, even right wingers, whatever you want to call it, in the Prem right now, I'll go through a list of them. Kulusevski, Foden, Saka, Salah, Diaby, Neto, Almiron, Bowen, and Bruno, Sterling, Gibbs-White, they are all performing better than Antony on the pitch and metrics, statistics-wise. Go look it up. They are all performing better. And like I said, for the price tag that you have just paid for him, and that isn't Antony's fault, by the way, that's the board's fault for panicking. Gary Neville mentioned that in a tweet today. It's the board's fault, because they panicked and was like, shit, what are we going to do? Tried signing Arnautovic and Rabiot, and then panicked and got Casemiro and Antony. So it's just panic stations at the board level. And the recruitment is just odd for me. Very, very odd. And he's starting to look like a flop. He could go in the same category as Harry Maguire and Jadon Sancho if he doesn't turn it around soon. Ten Hag needs a streamline where he can get resources from a sporting director immediately and other senior figures around him so it is a well-oiled club. It's functioning. Pep said it yesterday, the reason why they're so efficient is because they've got a CEO, a sporting director, a manager, coaches, etc. all together working towards the same thing. We don't have that. We have it's scattered everywhere. There's no communication between the lines. It's shit. It's shit. I feel like Erik ten Hag has been left to swim in a strong current with one oar to try and get back to shore. That's the way things are at the moment. The list of things he's had to deal with, right? Listen to this. And people say you're making excuses or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. The Glazers' continued sale of the club, the whole Ronaldo debacle, the Hayes situation, stripping Maguire of the captaincy and all the media involved in that, the Greenwood horror show, the reverse of the decision, U-turns, etc., Anthony's police investigation, the plague of injuries, the lack of structure and leadership above him, not being able to buy or move on the players that he wanted, and the media making up bullshit stories, along with the rest of it. There's probably things I'm not even mentioned here. And you expect a manager to be winning consistent games and playing an attractive brand of football whilst all this shit is going... The house is burning down, and he's trying to, keep the kids calm and not look at the flames that are going on behind him. It's impossible. Even if you're a couple of percentage off in the Premier League, you will lose games. It's as simple as that. And all of this, by the way, has happened within the space of a year. So do me a favour. Reactionary fans are not going to get what we want from this club. I get people are invested in it. They're emotional. They turn up to every single game. They want Manchester United to win. I absolutely agree with that. I'm behind that sentiment. But you had idiots like that Saeed, I think Saeed TV and Usman Talks, saying yesterday, calling for Ten Hag's head. All right, let's get rid of Eric Ten Hag. Who do you bring in? Does someone come in as an interim manager again until the end of the season? Then do we bring in a new manager who wants new players? And then you get rid of all the ones that we've literally just signed because they're Eric Ten Hag players? You might as well just call it a season. It's pointless bringing an interim manager. It is absolutely pointless. There isn't a manager out there right now who could do a better job, who could come into this group of players and get him winning consistent games. Maybe they'll have a bit of a manager bounce, which happens. Ollie had it. But they're not doing that. They're not going to get this team, this squad of players, to win. If it's a different, stylistic manager, it's just not going to happen. It's like trying to dig your way out of a grave. It's pointless. Right, let's end with the positives. There's only two that I want to talk about, and it's hard to even call them, to say it's positives because we got beat 3-0 by Man City. But one of the kind of standouts from yesterday, I thought, was Andre Onana in net. I thought he was really, really good. After a shaky start for him, he made mistakes, in a few games. People starting to question him. Why do we get rid of De Gea? Can we bring De Gea back, etc., blah, blah, blah. And the past two games, he's made some brilliant saves, penalty saves. And the one point blank from Haaland yesterday was unbelievable. But in total, I think he made about 7 saves in the full game. And he looked confident. He looked good. The 3 goals that he conceded had nothing to do with him. So, yeah, that wasn't his fault at all. And he was man of the match for me yesterday. So, that's one bright spark at least. Even though we had maybe 1 or 2 chances he could have converted yesterday, I still see a lot of promising signs with Højlund. I think Højlund will come good. He's living off scraps at the minute, half chances. But when you look at him, his pace, his strength, his hold-up play, his instinct, his poaching instinct that he has. I think he's a nice combination. You can name multiple strikers and kind of put them into one. I think Højlund represents that. Obviously, still yet to score in the league, which is a negative, but you can see the promising signs are there. And he's come into a team, an environment where this season we haven't started the best. We've got wingers who are greedy, who don't make the right decisions. And I believe he probably should have already had a couple of goals in the league. So he will come good. Again, I always mention this. I just don't want him to become a product of the environment. And the players that are around him, I mentioned at the start of the show, Scott McTominay, there was an opportunity where he could have just simple pass. Bernardo Silva would have played it, Foden would have played it. You could see him there on the right-hand side, open. You play that to Højlund, it's probably a goal. But he doesn't get that. But then he'll get moaned at for not scoring. So, it's always context to it. I think Rasmus Højlund is a gem. Look, we coming into this game, we kind of all expected it. People were predicting 5-0, 6-0, 6-1's an embarrassing defeat. And it was an embarrassing defeat, just not via the scoreline. Like, it wasn't, an ultra, like a 7-0 or a 6-1 or whatever. So it wasn't a shock to the system that we won, but we were still expecting some fight, some performance. You're at Old Trafford, it's a derby, we won last year, so there was a certain level of expectation. But it's the reality of the situation that we're in at the moment. You saw both team lineups and you knew instantly what was going to happen in that game. People will call that negative and lowering standards or whatever it is, but honestly, that's the reality of the situation we're currently in. We are 8th place fodder at the minute, the way we're playing. We're worse than Villa, we're worse than Newcastle. We're probably on par with West Ham, I'd probably say, in a minute, in terms of what you're going to get from them. Out of the club. I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going to come in and wave a magic wand, and I don't think we're going to get Champions League football. I don't think we're going to win a trophy. So we need to kind of buckle up, develop thick skin and prepare for what this season is going to offer, because I don't think Ten Hag can perform miracles with what he's dealing with at the minute. But obviously, let us know your thoughts on the game. If you would start looking towards a new manager now, what players would you drop from the team after yesterday's performance, what changes, etc. And let us know about your thoughts on my analysis as well. Please do leave a like on the video if you can. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully we're discussing a win rather than an embarrassing loss. We lose another Manchester derby. Shit.